Hello and welcome back to Climate Hangouts. Here we are back in the green zone next to the negotiation venue. I'm joined by Lisa, one of the co-conveners of the New Zealand Youth Delegation. Lisa, an absolute pleasure to have you here with us on the show. We understand that you've been working and studying in the climate change space for quite a while. Tell us a bit more about what you've been doing.
Yeah, sure. So I got into the climate change space during university, finishing off a Bachelor of Science and a Bachelor of Arts was my last paper. So on climate change, and I was like, oh my gosh, I need to learn more about this, I need to know about this. So I actually went back and did my Masters in Environmental Studies, but focusing on climate change education, which was great for sort of centering myself in the science, but also in how to communicate that science. And I think that's really important. And then I went on to do some really cool scholarships around sea level rise in Wellington and city resilience and mitigation, and now working in emergency management, which is a bit different, but when you think about climate change and increased storms and coastal erosion and that sort of stuff, it's actually a more practical side of dealing with climate change.
Cool. And so, as someone who's been campaigning on climate change for the last 6 months, how are you feeling about being here in Paris, surrounded by 20,000 other civil society observers?
To be honest, it's pretty overwhelming. This is my second COP, so I was in Warsaw, and so I've experienced this before, but Paris is bigger. It's a bit harder to meet people. It's slightly more disconnected, especially with civil society and the main sort of plenary policy part. So the people are amazing, and you hear so many stories, and I've been getting quite emotional over the past sort of couple of days as it really sinks in that we deal with climate change in a really sort of academic policy space, and then you hear these stories and you think about your own privilege. And I mean, I'm going back to New Zealand, I'm going back to a cushy job, and I have family help if I get into trouble. There's all this privilege that you take with you that so many of these frontline communities that are dealing with climate impacts now, they don't have. And so in New Zealand, I think we have to be really careful about acknowledging that privilege. And when we're talking about other countries and how it's going to impact them, we need to really acknowledge that and say, yes, we actually won't be impacted as much, but that doesn't mean that we don't have to do so.
And as someone who's been working with communities on the front line in a New Zealand context, where are the solutions to deal with these problems? Do we find them in the Paris Agreement, or will we find them somewhere else?
No, well, the Paris Agreement is necessary. It gives governments a mandate to do something about climate change, but the solution stuff comes at a city, a community, a neighbourhood, a street level. It doesn't come at this sort of international level, in my opinion. I don't see that. Cities are doing the stuff now, communities are doing the stuff now, it's happening. The agreement will happen or it won't, it will be bad or it will be good, and that's kind of almost irrelevant in my opinion. I think we're seeing these community-based solutions happening, things around fracking, around moving coastal communities, about communities trying to deal with these impacts in a way that suits them and that works in with their lives, and it's stuff that's not prescribed to them. It's like, how can these communities actually come up with solutions by themselves? And that's the stuff that I'm super positive about, and that we're seeing everywhere around here from these amazing and inspiring people.
Do you have any examples or any stories of people that you've met from around the world who have been working in the space, or who have been coming up with creative solutions going forward?
I'm not sure about creative solutions, but I've seen a lot of movements, people talking about the movements that they've got back home, especially around things like anti-fracking. So I heard from someone today who was completely inspirational, and I got extremely emotional about it because this person has lived with fracking on his farm. It's destroying the agricultural productivity of that area, and that's something that really hits home to me. I imagine if someone came and said, I'm going to put this fracking site on your farm, I would lose my mind. And that's, I mean, the strength of these people to keep fighting against these like, global corporates who are just paying them minimal amount for all this damage that's actually happening to their property. I can't even imagine how I would react to that, and to see their hurt and their anger and their pain, but also their spirits, like we're not giving up, we're going to fight this with everything we've got. It's just, yeah, it's pretty amazing.
And we understand, Lisa, that you come from a farming background yourself. Do you think the farming community in New Zealand really appreciates the threat of climate change and what could happen in the future?
I don't think that the farming community quite understands. I think there needs to be a lot more education around how climate change will impact farmers. There is a ton of science out there already about East Coast New Zealand becoming drier, West Coast New Zealand becoming wetter, so we're going to see increased droughts on the East Coast, increased storm damage and flood damage on the West Coast, and this all impacts agricultural productivity. And it's not just the farmers, it is the rural provinces, the towns where these farmers buy their milk and their food, and the economies that go with that. It's just going to have this trickle effect, and we need to be addressing this in a really honest way that's not attacking farmers. We've got this thing around farmers are producing methane, and therefore that's a greenhouse gas which is causing climate change, and that's true. The thing is, how can we help farmers adapt to these changes and develop more sustainable farming practices that can cut down these emissions, and have that conversation in a really honest way, in a really practical way, but sort of don't skirt around the issues. Let's just talk about it.
Yeah. So just to close this conversation, given the complexity of the issues we've talked about, what are some things you would like to see the New Zealand government really doing over the next year or two?
Wow. Acknowledging that New Zealand can and should be a leader on climate change. For all the things I've talked about privilege, we have this opportunity to do it. They should be doing it. We should have a far more ambitious target. We should be talking about climate change in everyday life, and they should be promoting this. And the same with things around consultations about climate change. So our INDC consultation was abysmal. There was nothing there. When you compare it to the flag consultation process and the resources and time and effort that went around that, comparing the two, it's just crazy how little resources, how little public education went into the climate change INDC consultation. So being more honest about climate change, honest to the people about how it will personally affect them, honest about things like climate migration and how that will impact New Zealand, things around increased temperatures and spread of diseases further south down the country as it warms up. All these things are having a huge impact, not only on the New Zealand economy, but also just on our social structures, our people.
Absolutely.
And we just need to have a conversation about that and move far more open.
Wow. Lisa, thank you so much for sharing your thoughts. We've just heard from Lisa, the co-convener of the New Zealand Youth Delegation, live from Paris. Thanks again, and we're looking forward to joining you back in New Zealand on the next episode of Climate Hangouts.